Okay, fine. So the cells, in the last week we have discussed this at length. The cells cannot use heat as energy, so they have to be dependent on the other form of energy, which is that the chemical energy for carrying out endergonic reactions. Now, what is this chemical energy basically is? The chemical energy is nothing but the the energy which is the energy which is released when a chemical reaction is done, is it not? We have lot of chemical reactions that are exergonic. If you do that chemical reaction, energy is liberated. Example, you can burn fossil fuels, you can burn something, energy is liberated, right? So that's a reaction. But the energy which is liberated, there is the energy. How do we boil water? Example, we are going to burn gas, and the heat liberated out of that reaction, burning of gas, is used to boil water. But boiling water, we are using heat. The same analogy doesn't work with cells, because cells don't use heat as their energy source. They use chemical energy. So what do we mean by usage of this chemical energy? A high energy compound like ATP is reacted and certain energy is liberated. And this energy is used to drive forward the endergonic reactions. So we are going to look into the mechanism of this. How does this happen? Mechanism. How does this happen? So what is that we are talking of? That chemical energy is used to do work in the cells. This is done by a mechanism called energy coupling. I think you can stop your videos here. I'm not understanding why. Yes, okay. So that's what that mechanism. The way this is done, how chemical energy is harnessed by the cells to do work. The mechanism is called energy coupling reactions or energy coupling. Look at this reaction. Glucose plus inorganic phosphate giving rise to glucose 6 phosphate plus water, of course. And this is an endergonic reaction. Why is it endergonic? We can look at the delta G sign and value. Delta G sign is plus 13.8 kilojoules per mole. Endergonic reaction. But this endergonic reaction is vital for the cell's survival, because this is the first step of glycolysis, and no cell can survive without doing glycolysis. Vital reaction for the cell to survive, and this vital reaction itself has become endergonic. The first step of the glycolysis has become endergonic. So how to drive this forward? Then the cell uses the ready-made, the readily available energy currency in it, which is that ATP. And when ATP is hydrolyzed, we get minus 30 kilojoules or 30.5 kilojoules per mole of energy is released. Here is a reaction which requires 13.8 kilojoules per mole of energy to happen. And here's a reaction which releases 30.5 kilojoules per mole when it is done. So now you have an exergonic reaction in one hand and an endergonic reaction in another hand. And you must do this endergonic reaction for the survival. So club them, mix them. What do we mean by this clubbing, mixing? That is what coupling means. And an example of coupling is this. Look at this. ATP hydrolyzed high energy compound to give minus 7 kilocalories per mole. In the previous slide, it was minus 30.5 kilojoules per mole. Please note the change in the units. It is joules here and it is calories here. About a 4 joules, 4 point something joules make up a calorie. So there are textbooks which give the delta G values in terms of calories. There are textbooks which give in terms of joules also. The SI unit is joules basically. Strictly speaking, we must speak in terms of joules. But anyways, since there's a practice still that calories is also used in biochemical reaction, I am giving you both the units. So ATP is hydrolyzed to get minus 7 kilocalories per mole, whereas glucose 6-phosphate requires plus 3 kilocalories per mole. So instead of doing these two reactions individually, please understand, this is the mechanism of energy coupling. Instead of doing these two reactions individually, in the sense, hydrolyzing ATP in one step, phosphorylating glucose in another step. In two different separate steps, the reactions have to be done. Then this reaction doesn't happen at all. So what a cell does, it intelligently couples these two reactions. So glucose, instead of directly reacting with inorganic phosphate, please follow me here. The glucose, instead of directly reacting with inorganic phosphate, reacts with ATP. And a phosphate group from ATP is transferred to glucose. Glucose becomes phosphorylated glucose at the 6th position. So its name would be glucose 6-phosphate, and ATP becomes ADP. Now calculate the delta G of this reaction, which is the reaction. This is a new reaction now. Glucose directly reacting with ATP and becoming glucose 6-phosphate, ATP becoming ADP. Anyways, what is ADP? Adenosine diphosphate, adenosine triphosphate ATP. The difference is a phosphate group. One phosphate has decreased and gone to glucose. So it is ATP now. What is the delta G value of this reaction? Now we will go back to the laws of thermodynamics. If you can add two reactions and get the overall reaction, you do it. So you add these two individual reactions, write the reaction, the molecules on opposite sides cancel. So left hand side, right hand side cancel. Phosphate on the right hand side, phosphate on the left hand side, they cancel. The remaining molecules you just write. On the reactant side, the remaining molecules are ATP plus glucose. On the product side, the remaining molecules are ADP plus glucose 6-phosphate. That is what you have. Like you have added the molecules, you should also add their thermodynamic quantities, variables. So delta G is 1. Add these two, minus 7 plus 3. What is the answer? Minus 4. So the delta G of this reaction is minus 4 kilocalories per mole. So since the sign is minus, this reaction is exergonic. Is it not? Not as exergonic as ATP hydrolysis, but fairly exergonic, minus 4 kilocalories per mole. So now the cell has got phosphorylated glucose. That was it. That is the molecule the cell was looking for. Is it not? So it has got it. So how did the cell make it? Not by direct phosphorylation with inorganic phosphate of glucose. Instead, phosphate transfer from ATP to glucose. Okay, and you know well that the phosphate transfers happen by the help of enzymes called kinases. Therefore, a glucokinase enzyme actually acts here, which removes phosphate from ATP, transfers it into glucose. This is what an energy coupled reaction is. So all that cell needed was this molecule glucose 6-phosphate. That could not have been done directly like this. Rather, it has coupled it with ATP hydrolysis and got the molecule. An example of energy coupled reaction. The same thing I have just expanded here. ATP hydrolysis is exergonic with minus 30 kilojoules. Glucose phosphorylation, direct phosphorylation, is endergonic with 14 kilojoules. But the coupled reaction is again exergonic. Glucose plus ATP, glucose 6-phosphate plus ADP. Net delta G is minus 16 kilojoules per mole. Of course, the moles have been left out here. No problem for, at least here it's no problem. So the coupled reaction has a net exergonic effect. In fact, all coupled reactions have net exergonic effect. If there is no net exergonic effect for a coupled reaction, the coupled reaction even doesn't happen. But what is the only thing happening to the cell? It is losing its ATP stock. Is it not? Every time it does a coupled reaction, every time it does an energy coupling reaction, ATP molecules are decreasing in concentration. So the cell has to find a source to replenish that or renew that stock. How does it do that? That's the discussion of our metabolism chapter. Anyways, so the net reaction is still exergonic and spontaneous. There is one more example which I've given. Of course, it's not in your syllabus. Anyways, look at this. You know sucrose, right? Sucrose is a sugar disaccharide made up of two monosaccharides, glucose plus fructose. You take glucose plus fructose, try to make a glycosidic bond directly. Difficult because it is an endergonic reaction. Delta G is plus 27 kilojoules per mole. Whereas when you couple this with ATP hydrolysis, which is energy currency, and write a net reaction, glucose plus fructose plus ATP, you have sucrose product plus ADP plus PI. What is the delta G? Minus 3 kilojoules per mole, just exergonic, just minus 3 kilojoules. Almost close to zero. Anyways, but even just exergonic is enough. Look at this plus 27. So you brought down the energetics of the reaction to a spontaneous value of minus 3. That is what the benefit of energy coupling is. So any molecule a cell wants, which cannot be synthesized directly through endergonic reaction, it couples with ATP hydrolysis and makes it, synthesizes it. So what is ATP acting as? It is acting as an energy currency. Wherever an endergonic reaction has to be done, it just goes there, takes a different route, directly involves in the reaction and becomes ADP. In that sense, it has given its energy of hydrolysis to make a high energy molecule like sucrose or a high energy molecule like glucose 6-phosphate. So ATP itself is high energetic, but when it is converted to ADP, it is low energetic. So when a high energy molecule converts to low energy, energy is liberated. That energy is used to drive these endergonic reactions forward. One more example of energy. So I think you have now a fair idea about what energy coupling is. So if we rewind our discussions to long back, I think I mentioned this. What is the work according to chemical and molecular angles? So the answer was doing endergonic reactions. So simply work is nothing but doing endergonic reactions. And this definition is more from molecular point of view. Okay. So don't think doing work is only endergonic reaction. At all domains, you can, now if you are going to a sports coach, work is different for him, right? You have to work out, you have to sweat out. That is what work to him. But for us now, for chemists, work is doing endergonic reaction. Now come to the very important part of our discussion. We are talking a lot about this ATP and what is the structure of ATP. The structure is this. The ATP is the abbreviation of the full name adenosine triphosphate. And you know, what is this adenosine? Adenosine is a nucleotide. Is it not nucleoside basically? Nucleoside, adenosine is. And it's a relatively big molecule. Not a simple molecule, not a small molecule, relatively big molecule. You have the structure like this. But going by the first look, structure appears a bit complicated, at least to remember and write. But as with all biomolecules, even a big structure can be dissected into smaller subunits of known structures. And these subunits would be connected through some bonds. So ATP can also be dissected into 3 smaller subunits of known structures. See this picture? Can you see a sugar molecule here? And the name of the sugar is ribose. Okay. And what is actually a ribose? It's a monosaccharide. In fact, it is a pentose. If you remember previous semester's organic chemistry, natural products, glucose, carbohydrate structure, you can follow this. Pentose, 5 carbon atom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In fact, if I had numbered this, would have been better. Anyway, still, you can follow the numbering. This is the first carbon atom, second, third, fourth, fifth. This is CH2 here, fifth. Now, the first carbon atom is attached to a nitrogenous base. The fifth carbon atom is attached to phosphate groups. Fine. And the second and third carbon atoms carry hydroxyl groups. Okay. So this is what a ribose sugar is. Now, what is the structure of the nitrogenous base? It is adenine. Hope you remember the nitrogenous bases, 5 nitrogenous bases: adenine, guanine, then cytosine, thymine, uracil. This is adenine. Adenine. A bond is formed between C1 and nitrogen of adenine. Please remember this. A bond is formed between C1 and nitrogen of adenine. I'm just explaining the structure of ATP and a bit in detail so that you remember this to write easily, because structure of ATP is a very favorite question in your exams. Most of the question papers carry this question. What is the structure of ATP? Give the structure of ATP or some question related to structure of ATP. So you must be ready to write that structure. The fifth carbon atom is attached to 3 phosphate groups. Now you see the phosphate has formed a small chain. Phosphate 1, phosphate 2, phosphate 3. And how are the phosphates bonded to each other? Groups. Through a phosphodiester bond. Okay. So you please note this bond. This is called a phosphodiester bond. 2 phosphate are bonded through an ester-like linkage. This is called a phosphate ester. What is a common ester in organic chemistry functional group? C double bond O, single bond O, COO. But this is P double bond O, single bond O. So POO. So this is called phosphate ester, not carboxylic ester, like it or in other molecules, organic molecules. This is phosphate ester. How many phosphate groups we have? 3. And how are they named basically? The one which is attached directly to the sugar is called an alpha phosphate. The next one is beta. The next is gamma. Okay. Although I haven't mentioned the nomenclature, alpha, beta, gamma. Okay. So why this alpha, beta, gamma nomenclature important? We'll see in the next slide. Anyways, so I hope you can now, with a fairly detailed explanation, can write the structure of ATP. Ribose, just first write the ribose sugar. Ribose sugar, C1 link it to the nitrogen of the adenine, write adenine and link it. C5 oxygen, link it to phosphate. And if taken together, what does this represent? Adenosine triphosphate. So what is it? This is a nucleotide. So like ATP, you also have GTP, guanosine triphosphate. You have CTP, cytosine triphosphate. Like that, you have 5 nucleotides: ATP, CTP, GTP, TTP, UTP. This is one nucleotide, adenosine triphosphate. Anyway, they don't come into picture as energy currency so much. Only the ATP comes into picture as energy currencies. So this is what the structure is. In fact, what happens to these nucleotides from the nucleic acids point of view? They all go and make the individual residues of RNA. Is it not? Now, what is the difference between RNA and DNA? Ribose nucleic acid and deoxyribose nucleic acid. This is the difference. At the third position, you don't have hydroxyl group. That will be your deoxyribose, and that is found in DNA. In RNA, it is the this is the structure that's found. Two hydroxyl groups still there. Adenosine triphosphate. And please practice writing this structure because, as I told you, one or the other question will always be linked to the structure of ATP. Now, let us look into the hydrolysis of ATP, which is the energy currency reaction, the exergonic hydrolysis of ATP. The ATP reacts with water. Of course, we have the enzymes called phosphatases, which hydrolyze them. And which phosphate group is removed due to hydrolysis? The last one, the third phosphate. So from the cleavage point of view, which bond is cleaved? The phosphodiester linkage between beta and gamma is cleaved. Beta and gamma is cleaved. There is one more phosphate linkage between alpha and beta that is not cleaved. Beta and gamma, second and third phosphate group is cleaved. So if this is cleaved, you add water at this point, at this bond, phosphate group is set free. That is what inorganic phosphate ion comes out. This is the product side. ADP is one product, phosphate ion is another product. And of course, energy is liberated because it's an exergonic reaction. And the amount of energy liberated is 7 kilocalories per mole or 30.5 kilojoules per mole. So much energy is liberated. And look at this energy profile diagram a bit. ATP is high energetic molecule, which is on the energy profile diagram is placed at a higher position, energy rich molecule. Comparatively, ADP is lesser in energy. In fact, there is one more molecule which is further lesser in energy, that is AMP, adenosine monophosphate. So how to go from ADP to AMP? You cleave one more phosphate. So that will be further lower in energy, AMP. Fine. So why did I make a mention of AMP here? Because in some metabolic pathways, we see that ADP is hydrolyzed to AMP, still giving us a lot of energy. That's point. So that is AMP. In fact, in your exams, you may get a question of writing the structure of ATP or ADP or AMP. Fine. So what is the difference? There is a small difference. Write 3 phosphates for ATP, 2 phosphates for ADP, and 1 phosphate for AMP, adenosine monophosphate. And look at the energy. When ATP changes to ADP, converts to ADP, so much energy is liberated. Minus 7.3 kilocalories per mole is liberated. So this is the structure of ATP and how its hydrolysis is a exergonic reaction. Why it's exergonic? Because the reactant ATP is higher in energy, whereas the product ADP is lower in energy. So the difference in energy is always liberated. In an exergonic or a spontaneous or exothermic reaction, the difference in energy is liberated as some form of energy. If it is exothermic, it is liberated as heat. It is exergonic, it is not liberated, rather it is used for coupling reaction. This reaction is coupled to do some endergonic reactions by the cell. So this is regarding the structure of ATP and energy coupling reactions. So if you have any, I will stop here because next discussion would start from a fresh topic. Therefore, I'll just stop here. So if you people have any doubt, you please ask. I'm going to unmute you. So you can ask doubt if you people have.